On today's show, a Harley that rides itself, a Bugatti that finally turns, and we want to know if the Jeep Gladiator is too expensive. Plus, Jim Glickenhaus joins us to talk about the joys and challenges of building dream cars. I'm Tiffany Stone, and this is Hagerty's Daily Driver. Let's buckle up. First up, have you ever suffered the embarrassment of dropping your motorcycle while trying to park? Well, Harley might have the answer: gyroscopes. As reported by Hagerty's Kyle Smith, Harley-Davidson recently filed a patent for a system that mounts to the luggage rack of a motorcycle. The gyro would be activated below speeds of 3 miles per hour, helping the bike stay upright during slow maneuvers. Once you get going, the system automatically shuts off. And as you know, a Harley Road King weighs 836 pounds, so once it starts to fall, you know that's it. And with that being said, I feel about this the way I feel about most driving aids. It's something you hope you don't need, but when you do need it, it's something that I hope you have. In a segment we're calling Wait, No, Seriously, Bugatti has been testing a special edition of the flagship Chiron that is supposed to be more nimble. How can a 4,400-pound, 1,500 horsepower car be nimble? It's a good question, and the Chiron Pure Sport might be the answer you're looking for. They've given the big Bugatti revised dampers, a new driving mode, shorter gears, and of course, stickier tires. Usually Bugattis are tested on high-speed ovals, but the Pure Sport is all about handling and driver feedback, so testing was done on the tight Bilsterberg circuit in Germany. While the thought of driving a $3 million car around a track may sound intimidating, the existence of a Pure Sport isn't a surprise. Bugatti treats their flagship car a lot like Dodge treats the Challenger, cranking out a special edition version what feels like every single month. But don't hold your breath for a plum-crazy Bugatti. I think I'd take a Fierce Fuchsia one though, for sure. And now, for today's big question, is the Jeep Gladiator too expensive? Two things have me thinking about this. First, Ford announced that the Bronco will be unveiled in July. Competition is good for consumers, but not always good for the automakers. And secondly, Jeep is set to announce a new Gladiator trim called Altitude. According to MotorInsiders.com, the Altitude is basically a Gladiator Sport S with an appearance package that includes body color fenders, nicer wheels and tires, and a better front bumper. It will be priced around $40,000, which is a lot of money for a Gladiator with just power windows and painted fenders. Ford and Chevy both offer small trucks for thousands less. And to compete, Jeep dealerships have already taken as much as $9,000 off the sticker price. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a Jeep fan. I love my Jeep, and my Jeep's name is Lucifer. I've helped build it. I've driven it across the country, and I love to go rock crawling. But the question is, will the Bronco replace the Wrangler? Probably not. But the Bronco has been teased for so long, honestly, I think people may buy it just to say they have a Bronco. And for anyone who has seen Jurassic Park, you know what I mean when I say this: lockers before light bars. Finally, my view is this: if you want a vehicle that's capable of going off-roading, you might as well buy a Rubicon, and this is why. The Rubicon comes standard with Dana 44s in the front and rear, electronic sway bar disconnect. You also have lockers and standard 33-inch tires from BFG. It's everything you need to go off-roading straight from the dealership. Now, coming up after the break, have you ever thought about building a car from scratch? I'm sure we all have, but this man did it. Jim Glickenhaus has collected and raced some of the fastest, most exotic metal on the planet. Now he owns his own company. They make street cars, race cars, and even a desert buggy. He might be living the dream, but his cars are very real. He has class wins at the Nürburgring 24, and we'll talk to him about Le Mans. But first,
Jeep, the toughest four-letter word on wheels. We built the Jeep for the person who wants to leave roads far behind, tell trails to get lost, and go where the crowd can't follow. And now, for 1973, this tough 4x4 classic is better than ever.
thank you so much, Jim, for joining us today. You have such a beautiful collection of vehicles. Talk to us a little bit about them.
When I was young and a film director, whenever I made money, instead of putting it away for the future, and I would take it and buy cars, and then you become a collector by buying things and never selling them. But I love the stories. I love the history behind it. I love the story of the Ford Ferrari wars. I love my Lola, which Mark Donohue drove to 8 victories and then wound up with Andy Warhol. And I loved race cars, but I loved converting them so you could drive them on the road. So I'd say that's the main thing about my collection.
That is so wonderful. I love that you said that you wanted to build cars that were race cars, but you could build them and drive them on the road. Is this why you wanted to start building so many great vehicles, especially since there are some out there in the world already?
Well, you know, the thing I learned was that no matter how wonderful a car was, you could always make it better. I mean, I remember my first Ferrari, which was a 275 GTB. It was a GT car, but it had also raced in the Targa Florio. And I drove it 50,000 miles in the rain, the snow, the mud. And I learned that some part of it was wonderful and some part of it was a disaster. I mean, for example, the window, you couldn't get to defog. And when I asked my mechanic about it, he wrapped a chamois around a sponge and said, that's a Ferrari defogger. And I said, well, that's not going to do it. So I went to J.C. Whitney, bought inline fans, cut them in, and blew a lot of air across the windshield, and it defogged. Years later, with my 308 GTB, I couldn't get the thing to stay cool. I would drive it every day on the West Side Highway, and in the summer, it would overheat. So we went to Home Depot, bought a air conditioning exit duct, cut the hood with the Sawzall, and made a duct that enabled the radiator air not only to go into the radiator, but come out. About a week or two later, Ferrari came by and took a look at it and said, what the hell did you do to your GTB? And I said, you know, I want to be able to drive it and in the summer with the air conditioning on, and the way you've engineered the car, it doesn't work. Well, strange thing, in the next year, all of their cars had that exit vent. You know, they never sent me a royalty.
So it pretty much seems like you did some R&D for Ferrari and finding something for yourself. That is amazing. Talking about different vehicles, you have a thing called the Baja Boot. Can you explain a little bit about that? I love myself some desert racing, and this looks amazing.
Yeah, well, the Baja Boot is really one of the most wonderful vehicles that really, frankly, was ever built. It was designed and engineered by Vic Hinkey, who also had a contract from NASA to build the lunar rover. So in the same building, he took the money they gave him to build the lunar rover, and he designed and engineered the Baja Boot. And the Baja Boot was really a groundbreaking desert racer. He made it really a mid-engine vehicle by taking the Chevrolet motor and swapping it north-south, as Lamborghini later did in the Diablo. And this made the weight much more central to the car. And it was a very cool vehicle. And of course, he had to find the coolest person on the planet to own it and drive it. So he got in touch with Steve McQueen. And Steve was a real guy. I mean, he wasn't a poser. He raced. He raced at Le Mans. He raced at in the desert. And he was an amazing person. And when he raced the first Baja 1000, he used a Sinclair gas station map. I mean, he didn't have sat-nav or any of the things that we have today. And I saw the Baja Boot for sale at an auction in Pebble Beach, and I just knew I had to have it, so I bought it. And then when I drove it all around, I said, this thing is really wonderful. We have to make a modern homage to it. And that became the Glickenhaus Boot, which we raced at the Baja last November and beat the Ford Factory Bronco team by 270 miles.
That is amazing. One last question. I want to talk about Le Mans. They have the hypercar class that's there. It's a little uncertain right now. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, you know, unlike any other manufacturer in the world except Toyota, we're going to be at Le Mans in 2021 with 2 Glickenhaus 007 hypercars in the top class. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me that Ferrari has not finished first overall at Le Mans since 1965. And it's crazy that Glickenhaus is going to be there in 2021 with 2 Le Mans hypercars, and no other sports car manufacturer except for Toyota is even going to be there. But we're going to be there. An American team has not won Le Mans since first overall for over 50 years, And we're following in the footsteps of wonderful people like Briggs Cunningham, Jim Hall, and Carroll Shelby. And you never know.
Well, thank you so much. I don't know if you can see this when you just talked about doing that and bringing those hypercars over to Le Mans in 2021. I have some goosebumps, and talking about, following your passion, I also got a little teary because you are absolutely right. If you have a passion for something, continue it and do it. And sir, you have done all of that. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all of that knowledge. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tiffany Stone, and I'll be back tomorrow with all the automotive news you need and maybe some you don't. Until then, keep driving.